In a split second, a tiny blood vessel in your brain could rupture, or a microscopic virus could slip past your defenses. You won't feel it happen. You might just feel a slight headache or a momentary dizziness. You'll blink once, and then the person you have spent your entire life building will cease to exist. Not death, not a coma, but something far stranger and far more complete. For the rest of your life, you might look at your own hands and wonder who they belong to. You will look at your spouse, your children, the people you loved more than life itself, and feel absolutely nothing. No recognition, no warmth, no history. They will be strangers holding your hand, crying for a person who is standing right in front of them, but is no longer there. And if your memory ever returns, it won't feel like waking up. It will feel as if someone took a pair of scissors to your timeline, deleted years or decades of your existence, and suddenly dropped you into a future you never lived. This happens to thousands of people every year. We treat it as a medical tragedy, but here is the unsettling truth that almost nobody talks about. We don't fully understand how it works. Amnesia is one of the most terrifying conditions in medicine, and the question of what it actually does to your identity, where you go when your memories vanish, is still one of the deepest unsolved mysteries in all of science. Let's go into the dark and find out what we do know, because the answer is stranger than losing your keys and far more terrifying than simply forgetting. Let's start by killing the biggest myth. Amnesia is not just forgetting. We call it memory loss because it sounds clean and clinical, and because telling someone their actual identity has been physically wiped from the universe sounds too horrifying to comprehend. But the two states could not be more different. When you forget where you parked your car, the neural pathway is still there. It's just temporarily misplaced. Your brain still knows who you are, what you value, and how you got here. Now, compare that to profound amnesia. Under deep amnesia, your past is not misplaced. It is gone. Not by trying harder to remember, not by looking at old photographs, not by family members screaming your name or crying at your bedside. You can look at a photo of your own wedding day, and your brain will process the pixels, the colors, the faces, but it will not stir because the signal never reaches the part of you that could care. Your brain isn't just missing information. On certain brain scans, the damage of an amnesiac brain reveals something chilling. It's not that the memories have been erased like files on a hard drive. In many cases, the very networks that allow you to perceive time and continuity have been shattered. Amnesia takes your selfhood to the very edge of nothingness, leaves you trapped in a perpetual present, and asks you to survive there. So, how does a brain do that? To understand it, you have to understand what you actually are physically. Right now, your sense of being a single, continuous person, the you, who woke up this morning and will go to sleep tonight, is created by a fragile thread of memories constantly tying your past to your present. Your brain takes your childhood, your triumphs, your heartbreaks, and weaves them into one seamless narrative. And here is what amnesia does. It doesn't just block your thoughts. Your conscious mind keeps running. Your intelligence remains intact. What amnesia does is sever the thread of time itself. The present moment can no longer talk to the past. The regions that should be consolidating your experiences suddenly go quiet to each other. The conversation that was your identity breaks apart. Researchers who study patients with profound amnesia describe it almost like watching a movie where the film is cut and spliced every few seconds. The screen is still lit, the projector is still running, but there is no plot, no connection between the scene before and the scene happening now. And the moment that network can no longer integrate your past into your present, the unified experience we call you simply stops. There is no one home to remember who they are anymore. You don't fade out. Your history is just switched off. Now, here's where it gets genuinely disturbing, and where modern neuroscience had to confront something incredibly dark. For decades, there was a quiet, horrifying possibility lurking behind every case of memory loss. What if the patient's brain can still feel the profound terror of being lost, but can't express it? What if they are trapped in a permanent, waking nightmare, experiencing the horror of having no identity every single second, only to forget the horror a moment later, starting the cycle of terror all over again? This isn't a horror movie. It has a real clinical example, and its most famous case is a man named Clive Waring. Clive was a brilliant British musician who, after a brain infection, was left with a memory span of only 7 to 30 seconds. He cannot form new memories. Every time he blinks, his brain resets. He is convinced, with absolute certainty, that he has just woken up from a years-long death-like coma. He cannot remember what he did 10 seconds ago. He screams. He cries out. He writes in his diary over and over again, "I am awake now for the first time." And then, 30 seconds later, he sees the entry. He doesn't recognize the handwriting. He crosses it out and writes below it, "Now I am truly awake." His pages are filled with crossed out lines of a man desperately trying to prove he exists. He is trapped inside a mind that looks completely conscious to those around him, but is actually a prison of endless, resetting voids. It reveals something profound and frightening. Identity, intelligence, and memory are separate switches. Your brain has to keep all of them flipped correctly every second of your life. Usually it does. The fact that it occasionally doesn't is the clearest proof we have that who we are is not a solid, permanent thing. It's a fragile, ongoing construction project, and the margin for error is razor thin. But let's come back to the strangest question of all, the one that science still cannot answer. When the memories that define you go silent, where do you go? Think carefully about what a person with retrograde amnesia experiences. When they wake up without their past, they don't feel empty in the way you might think. They don't feel a void where their childhood used to be. To them, there is no missing piece because there is no old self left to notice the absence. The person they were before, the one who had a favorite food, an old flame, a childhood dream is gone. In their place is a brand new stranger, built from the same physical brain, but with a completely different operating system. If you ask an amnesiac who they are, they might look at you with total confusion. Not because they are searching for a lost answer, but because the question itself doesn't make sense anymore. Many philosophers have pointed out that severe amnesia might be the closest thing a living person can experience to a literal reincarnation while still alive. A complete reboot of the soul. For a lifetime, you accumulated a story, and in a second, the universe deletes the file and starts a new draft on the same computer. Which raises a question that should genuinely unsettle you. If your memory ever returns, if the old pathways suddenly reconnect and the old you wakes up, what happens to the person who was living in your body during those months of amnesia? The person who made new friends, developed new habits, and lived a different life? They are switched off. They dissolve back into the dark, replaced by the original owner. But there's no scientific way to prove which of those two people was the real you. Maybe both were. Or maybe every time your brain shifts its connections, the old you ends and a new version takes over, carrying the illusion of continuity because of the memories it inherited. There is no test that can tell the difference. Not for amnesia, and maybe not for the gap between the person you were yesterday and the person you are today. So, the next time you think of amnesia as just a medical condition, you'll know the truth is so much deeper. It doesn't just make you forget the past. It dissolves the very anchor that holds your consciousness in place. It proves that you are not a solid object, but a fragile story written on water. And then, through a process we still don't fully understand, your brain somehow keeps running, trying to build a new identity out of the wreckage in the dark. We live our lives trusting our memories to tell us who we are, but we are all just a single brain injury away from becoming a stranger to ourselves. The miracle isn't that we remember our lives. The miracle is that the story we tell ourselves about who we are manages to stay the same when we wake up every morning. And the truly humbling part, the part that should keep you up tonight, is that the best minds in the world still can't tell you where the original author goes when the book is wiped clean.